right, so today I'm going to talk about some management stuff. Thanks for coming down to this hangout. Appreciate it. If you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. Like also helps me out a lot, more than you know. Uh, so, although you can probably guess. So yeah, today I'm going to talk about some management stuff. Just managers I've had in the past. What I think makes a good manager, what I think makes a bad manager. If you are in management or you're looking at getting into management, this is a perfect hangout for you to listen to. And even if you're not any of the above, if you just want to hear some experiences that I've had, there you go. Thanks. Thanks for coming. So, my experience as a manager, I've mentioned this in one of maybe a couple of my last videos, that I was a manager at a restaurant for 2.5 years. Learned a lot about other people, myself. I feel like it helped me become a better parent. And yeah, so then I've also been like not necessarily a team leader, but a project lead in my IT career. There are several things that I was, you know, the guy over. Um, so I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what it takes to be a manager and what the pros, the cons, the goods, the bads of being a manager and things that you probably shouldn't do, or things that you should start doing right now if you're not already. So something that I think makes a really good manager is listening to your employees, not bringing the hammer down on them. Uh, I mean, sometimes you have to if they're being very insubordinate. Uh, but I think trying to understand why your employees are doing what they're doing by asking them, not just observing them, because that's another thing too. Having communication with your employees or your direct subordinates, I guess you call them. Uh, yeah, that goes a long way. It creates coaching opportunity. And if you don't know what a coaching opportunity, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a opportunity for you to coach them, show them how to do their job, and ask them why they're doing certain things they are. And approach it in a way where it's not like, I'm mad at you and why are you doing this kind of thing. More so of like, hey, I've noticed you're doing this and I just want to like get some input on that. Like, you know, tell me why you're doing it because maybe the way that they're doing it is actually right or better, and that could lead to process improvement. Imagine that. Yeah, employees aren't all terrible. You definitely do have a large portion of the workforce that is lazy. Um, but anyway, so yeah, listening to your employees and being able to be the kind of person that realizes, you're the one that's giving these people direction. Um, so their actions are a reflection of the way that you're directing them. And so like same thing with parenting. Your employees are only going to be as good as you allow them to be or you help them be. So and some people are just beyond repair. I know. I know. I've been there. So let me explain. Um, So I'll go into training first. So, and I briefly mentioned this in my last video. So my management job, I was a closing manager and I was a training manager. I filled both of those roles, and so we bring a new person in, and I was pretty comfortable with my other subordinates, and I would talk to them like a normal, what I feel like a normal boss would, I guess, or what I would expect, how I would expect my manager, the person above me to speak to me. Not necessarily as a peer, but just, a human. Um, So I would tell this new employee, hey, these are your teammates, this person and this person. I trust them to teach you how to do it. And ahead of time, I would tell both of, or, however many of those teammates that, you're going to be the one training this person. I trust you, do a good job. Kind of thing. So I would allow that to happen. I'd have the team train this person. I feel like that's the most effective way because they're going to be the ones working with this person. So, well, more closely with them, more directly with that person. So, the team would get this person trained up. A couple days later, I'd come back and be like, all right, I'd either just observe them or I would ask them to do something very specific that I knew would be difficult that they should have gone over and just see how they do this, how they handle this situation or how they do their job. And then I would use that as coaching opportunity if I notice anything that's off, or I'll be like, hey, good job, keep going. Uh, so that did two good things. Not only did it ensure that this new person, knew how to do their job, but also that the team that I had my trust in also knew the proper processes and procedures on how to do things. Super critical to have the team be able to rely on each other. And so that cohesion, camaraderie kind of thing, that is super critical. And whether you're in a restaurant, whether you're in an office, working in IT, working in programming, working in sales, really whatever. Uh, it's super important to have team cohesion. And anybody that's been in the military will tell you that team cohesion and camaraderie is extremely important, especially if they were an officer. If they were an officer. Yeah. Anyway, so um yeah, having them teach the team. Uh then also when it came time, so like those coaching opportunities, yeah, not be all like, oh, why are you doing it this way? Like you're terrible. Just learn why they're doing it. And then, say they are doing it wrong, like, hey, uh, this is how it's supposed to be done. This is why we do it this way. I understand you might disagree with it, but this is kind of, how it's supposed to operate here. And then not just leave it at that. Be like, you have, and you have to like sincerely ask it too. Be like, do you have, so for example, they disagree with what it is that you're telling them. And this is the process that we have, this is why we do it, and it's important that you do this. And then they disagree, being like, well, I think that's dumb, and it's so much faster to do it this way, and X, Y, and Z. And then you come back with the response like, okay, I'll take your feedback, but until we talk again, I would like for you to do it this way. So it's not necessarily putting it all on them. It's also you fulfilling your responsibility as being in management, supervisor, manager, whichever. Um, so another thing that I think is incredibly important as a manager is to keep your word on things. I have had several managers, supervisors that say they will do something for me, or we have that coaching opportunity talk, and they never get back to me, and or they say, yeah, you can go and do this, right? And I'll give an example. Uh, so I had worked for this one company, and before starting, I had said to the guy I was going to be under that, hey, I have this vacation coming up. It's been planned for a couple months. It's a family reunion. And will that affect, will that negatively impact anything about my employment here? Will I be able to start? Just want to make sure I won't have any repercussions if you do decide to hire me. Anyway, so that guy told me, "Yeah, it should be fine. Just let me know when you're going and you'll be good." Like, "Oh, cool." And I've learned that I need to get that in writing. And because fast forward a month when I took 2 weeks off to go on this family reunion, he was very surprised and that I was going to be going on this vacation. I'm like, well, I kind of told you. Like, this was part of my job interview, and we talked about this. And uh, I forget exactly how that conversation went, but I remember him telling me something like, you need to tell me when you're going, something like that. But anyway, I had told him all that I was going, and from my perspective, I thought everything was going to be fine. And so then I come back, and he was like, just kind of, had his nose all at a joint, and he, confronted me on it, and I was like, well, you know, this is when we talked about it, and at the time you said it was okay, so I decided to go. I told my family that I was able to go, uh, still, and this wouldn't be a problem. And he then responded to that with, "Oh yeah, that sounds like something I would say." And it's like, and then he just walked away. And I was like, "Hmm, that doesn't really sit well with me because not only does it show your contempt for me, but it also kind of shows that you just don't care about my opinion at all." So, and I only worked there for a few months. Yeah, there's a whole lot of drama behind that, but still kind of not happy about. And you know what? I'll go into it. So, I was hired at this game studio, and I won't name them. You know who you are if you're watching this. And yep, was told that I could go on vacation, so I went on vacation. And then I traveled almost, well, it was about every other weekend. I was out traveling wherever. I had a girlfriend at the time who could get really good deals on flights, and hotels, so we went out every other weekend when I didn't have my daughter. And I'd leave on like a Friday around lunch, and then I'd come back Sunday night. Just one of those quick weekend getaways. Um, so I was gone on the weekend quite a bit. So there was some work outings that I missed, and because it was during the summer. So there were some work outings that I missed, and I was taking off early every other Friday, but I was still working like 40, 50 hours a week. And like, I was putting in the time. Uh, so yeah, I was going on vacation, and anyway, so I felt like I was consistently told that I was doing a good job, but then there were times where I would also be uh, made to feel like I'm not doing a good job, which I think for the creative position that I was in, I was a 3D artist. That it's not good to put your employees down. You need to make them, hey, you're not performing or you're not delivering the quality of work that I want. What can we do to improve that? And then like work with them to, improve. Or I know it sounds bad, but sandbagging, lower your expectations. I mean, come on, you can't expect everyone to be perfect. And, I showed up when I was supposed to. I left later and or would come in early sometimes. And yeah, I was still working quite a bit. So me taking 4 hours off on every other Friday, which, to be fair, I should have cleared that with, supervisor first, that it would have been okay for me to leave early every other Friday. And I could have adjusted from there. However, it's also on him to kind of question why I'm doing that. So there was a couple at faults there. I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes. I recognize that. Um, so anyway, I worked there for probably 4 months, 3, 4 months, and they laid me off. came into the office. My manager was acting super weird like the whole day, and then came. I worked through lunch, and came about 2:30, almost 3 o'clock, and said, "Hey, Ken, we need to talk." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure," like totally oblivious to anything. And so they sat me down and said, "Hey, like we don't think you're a bad person. We don't want you to take this personally. We think you're good at what you do. It's just, we're a small studio. We don't have the money, and we thought we could bring you on, but we can't. And so we're gonna have to let you go." And I was like really broken up about that because it's like, I'm in. This is my first game development job, and I get canned after 3 months because you're a small studio, and it like really derailed a lot of what would have been my career. Um, which was a real bummer at the time. Yeah, that was really rough. I did not take that very well. Um, because it had been my childhood dream to work at a game studio, and the previous, 6 years of my life at that point, I had worked really hard to get into game development, and then when I finally got in, it was yeah. So what was really bad about all of that was from one of the guys I went to college with who also worked there. Uh, it was like a week later, I found out through him that this small studio had hired a bunch of people right after like literally right after they got rid of me. And so I was like, huh, so you are telling me that you can't afford to have me work here, but you turn around and hire 3 or 4 more people. Like, really? Like, just be honest with me. Like, if you thought I was terrible, just tell me. Like, I'm the kind of person that doesn't. I don't necessarily like sugarcoating or I don't like having things delivered to me sugarcoated because to me that just appears as like BS. And I mean, they did a very good job at making it seem like it wasn't sugarcoated. Um, they just misrepresented the situation, which if you do that as a manager, you're going to lose trust in your employees. Uh, your employees are going to lose trust in you very quickly. Also, at one of my previous jobs, I was expected to be on call. And here I feel like I'm kind of just complaining about my previous management. But I'll go into also like the good things. So, one of my previous jobs, I was expected to be on call. That's IT. That's what happens. You get to be on call. And so I went home sick one day. I just wasn't feeling good. But I was on call and I was supposed to escort someone into our data center. And so on my way out, I made sure, we had a procedure that we were supposed to follow if we were on call and we weren't going to be able to make something. We were supposed to reschedule. And so my manager, uh, that I, anyway, my manager, I, confirmed with her that I was supposed to have a escort tonight, and which that might sound funny, but I was supposed to escort someone into the data center that night, and I wasn't going to be able to make it because I'm not feeling well. And can you find someone else to do that for me? And she said, yeah, yeah, I'll do that. I'll take care of that for you. And I sent out the email and was good to go. Like I crossed my T's and dot my I's. And then the next day, I came in and all of management was super mad at me. And I'm like, they were just doing like the cold shoulder kind of thing. I'm like, what the heck is wrong with these guys? And so it turned out that this person who was my manager, she did not get someone to backfill me. So it then came down on me that this customer of ours, who was already kind of a, you know, uh, very high touch, kind of didn't have the relationship we had with them wasn't as good as it should have been. And that was by fault of the company. So it came down on me that, these people, they showed up at the data center at 2 o'clock in the morning and nobody was there for them. And I was like, well, I gave you the on-call phone and you said you were going to find someone to be on call for me. So, yeah. And that defense didn't go over at all. The, like, you as my manager are supposed to kind of like back me up when, that kind of thing happens. But she didn't. And they pulled out the, well, you are supposed to be the one that finds someone else, not the manager. And I'm like, hold on here. So even though manager said she was going to be able to find someone for me and she didn't, and I ended up not going because I was acting off the words of said manager, I'm in trouble. And they're like, well, this isn't up for discussion. I'm like, huh, well, okay, then I guess I'll just get written up. And yeah, pretty soon after that, they laid me off, um, which I saw it coming after I actually started looking for a job that day. Yeah, I went home and started applying for jobs because I knew I'm just like these guys, they already don't like me. And then this, it's just like kind of piling things on. So yeah, eventually they laid me off and they're like, oh, we liked you and, you're great, which this is another thing they did. Uh, I'm telling you, this is just examples of what not to do as a manager. If you're going to tell your employee that you're going to do something for them or that you're okay with something, like stick to that. Even if you end up taking negative consequences because of it, like that's on you as a manager, not on your employee, because you're the one giving them direction. And if you're giving them bad direction, then that is your fault. And so you have these really scummy managers that they pawn responsibility off on their subordinates, which work delegation I think is fine. But like I said, if the hammer comes down on you, you shouldn't take it out on your subordinates because you're the manager. And that's one of the things I really don't like being about, or I really don't like about being in management, is because there were things that totally were not my fault. That were just like, yo, I told this person what to do, and like they said they were going to do it, and then they didn't, and then it comes on me because I haven't taught them well enough or something stupid. And it's like, dude, this person should totally know. Like, come on. um, and also things that are just like totally out of your control that come down on you as a manager. I really did not like my experience as, I mean, it definitely, I feel like, like I mentioned, it made me a better person. Um, but I'm not hurting to get back into management. So like I would like to have a company and I would like to have one, maybe two employees because I think that's all I can handle. Um, well, that's all that I want to handle. When I was a manager, I had a team of I think the most people I ever had was like some Friday night. It was about 14 people that we had working. Um, yeah, so that was really interesting. My yeah, the manager I had at my last job, my supervisor, he was a really good guy. I liked him. If you're watching this, just know that I actually really liked you. Except towards the end. And one of the things that happened that kind of mm, it was difficult. So I'm the kind of person where if my supervisor tells me that I need to do something or that I should do something, fill in the blank, whatever, that that's their directive and that I am to do that. And because I've learned that when you don't do what your supervisor wants you to do, that's not a good thing. So, um, yeah, they will come after you. And if management wants you gone, they will find a way to get you gone. So he had told me to do, certain things and, like, oh, you want to, you're at the high end of mid performance. And, if you want to be on the low high or, mid high performers, like, this is what you got to do. Ah, all right. So I like, boom, did that, ran at it, 100, like 1,000 miles an hour, got a nice big bonus, all that stuff. And then, so what ended up happening though was so we had two sites, two major sites where the team was split. And the team that I worked with, they liked me. At least that's the impression I got. But the other team, this other site, they had a really bad impression of me, and it was a lot of it was because of these things that my supervisor had told me to do. And that would be my like, hey, I was told to do this, so if you're getting mad at me, go talk to him. Like that that had to happen a lot, unfortunately. I had to say things like that. And it's like I would take responsibility from like, yeah, I'm the one who did this and I did it under the direction of my leadership. So if you have a problem with it, go talk to my leadership and then my leadership will talk to me. And that's actually how policy was set up in our like that was written policy at the company. So And then I had a one-on-one with that supervisor, and he told me that it was kind of it was along the lines of communication, which was cited during when I was leaving there. Uh, how my communication just wasn't that great, and which is kind of like I actually feel like I'm a good communicator when it comes like working with people at the professional setting. Um, but he said that the other team's perception of me is based off his shortcomings as manager. And yeah, just like left it at that. It's like, well, like, can we do something? Like, I can't keep taking the fall for all the stuff that I get told to do specifically by you. Um, whether that's spending extra time on a certain project or pursuing a certain issue, and then I get looked down upon by this other team because I'm perceived as doing not my job. I'm doing something else, which wasn't necessarily fair. Um, but life isn't fair, right? So, so yeah, and there was one other thing that really, ooh, so this is another thing. And again, I feel like I'm complaining almost, but I think that this is a really good examples of things that you should not do as a manager. So this supervisor that I had, who I initially really liked, and towards the end, it kind of was like difficult to like, should I share certain things with this guy because it's just going to come back on me? Like, I do my best to communicate with the team. I put things out, whatever. Anyway, so there was a trip that was required from one of us on the team to go out of state and help out with this convention. It was like sort of a convention. We would have had to provide tech support for supervisors and managers and important people during this conference. There we go. That's what it's called. During this conference, and nobody else wanted to go on the team. This is during our team meeting. He asked if anybody wanted to go. Nobody said anything. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I'll take one for the team. So, yeah, I'll go. It'll be fine. And it was in Florida, and during the summer, and they're like, oh, you sure it's going to be terrible down there? The weather's going to be absolutely awful. And I was just like, I've been to Florida like a few times, and I actually really liked it. Like while I'm out there, if I have time, I might drive out to Long Beach, or not Long Beach, Turtle Beach, or maybe out to Cocoa Beach, and there's a really nice restaurant that I've been to several times. Like I said it more in like a joking way, and it got some laughs. Uh, anyway, uh, like the next day, I don't even think it was the next day. It was like later. It was like a couple hours. Yeah, it was a couple hours after that team meeting. Who this one particular teammate was not in. he was throwing a fit saying that he wanted to go and that I was just seeing it as a vacation and that, he ultimately thinks that he deserves to go on this trip. And I was like, wow, well, you should have been in the meeting that you frequently don't come to. And yeah, so this other teammate was throwing a fit that he didn't get to go. I think that's very childish, but whatever. So supervisor comes to me, and he was saying all these things about how he thinks that this other teammate of mine is one who should go on it, and that my s- that supervisor was agreeing with this teammate that I'm just seeing it as a vacation. And I was very perturbed by that. And especially when he told me that I want you to decide what you're going to do. I just want to make sure that you're set up for success. And me having been a manager, I know exactly what that means. It's like if I had decided to go and like, screw you, I'm going, it eventually would have probably led to my termination. So, like I'm not stupid. It's like there's manager talk. There's hidden meaning to certain words, and once you are inside of management, you learn that very quick. Um, so that was really frustrating that my supervisor just didn't have my back at all. And that there was this very perceived negative opinion about me and my willingness and capability to do my job. And so I was finally just like, whatever, I don't care, you can go. And what what would have been fine is if this teammate of mine didn't do what he did. And what he did, which my supervisor should have put a handle on, all he did was complain the entire time. From that point on, yeah, until he went on the trip, that how much the weather was going to be bad and how he wasn't looking forward to it and how I guess I have to go and all these things. It's like, hmm, interesting, because there's someone else me, who was way more than willing to go and wouldn't be complaining. Not necessarily because I see it as a vacation. It's just, it's my job. That's what I have to do. I agreed to do it. End of story. So if you find yourself or you are a manager, and either one, I guess, if you are an employee at a company and you find yourself complaining about certain aspects of your job, you should probably find a different job. Putting it out there. And I've had that conversation with crew members before. It was kind of a rude awakening for them because when I was at the restaurant, they were all teenagers with the exception of like three. Um, so telling to them, hey, I understand there's things you don't like about this job, but if all you're going to do is complain about it, I think you should start looking for another job. And that would be my, uh, not necessarily like, hey, manager to employee. It was more of like employee to employee. I'm just letting you know that like your energy is not good for the team, and that if you're gonna, if you hate or if you're finding yourself complaining about your job that much, go somewhere else where you might enjoy it. Saying. um, and I mean, we all have things about our job that we don't like. Like me doing this YouTube thing. It's admittedly like doing these videos. It's draining for me. Like after I'm done doing this video, I go and like lay down for an hour because I've gotten a little bit better, but me just talking, sharing things, it's something I want to do. It's just my, I guess, social anxiety. It just takes a lot out of me. I'm like me being a very laid back kind of person, like probably one of my ex girlfriends. She finds out I'm doing this, she'd be like, "Wow, I'm surprised Kent, surprised Kent wants to talk about himself that much." Uh, so Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Management can be very terrible, but they can also be very good. And so I'll give some amazing examples. So this was one of my previous, obviously one of my previous jobs. But there was this supervisor. She saw a lot of potential in me. I was in sales, and but it was more so not in the sales side of things. It was in the IT side of things. Because this was after I had been a manager at a restaurant. I got into sales, which I didn't enjoy, but I could very much I was able to relate to management there much easier than I was to the my peers, the fellow employees. Just there's a certain level of discipline that many people just don't have. Like the willingness to do your job, even and show up. The minimum requirement of your job to show up. Surprises me how many people just don't. Um, yeah, call centers are notorious for it. And the supervisors of call centers, if you're watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. um, so yeah, this one sales manager, she saw a lot of potential in me on the IT side of things because we would talk, and I was really passionate about tech, and I knew how to do stuff with computers and all that stuff. And so she recommended to the director that I be taken off sales and I be put into more IT side, that it'd add more value to the team, to the more so to the company, also to the team because I ended up, helping them with things that they needed help with on the technical side. And that was actually my gateway drug. It was my real first real step in the door with doing IT, and it helped. That experience helped me in my future jobs. So that is a really good. This sales manager was actually my manager. She's great. And she also had a slight interest in cybersecurity, which she actually does now. But anyway, um, yeah, it was really awesome to have a supervisor not only see and realize my potential, but do something about it. And if you are a manager or supervisor and you have that one employee that's just like really awesome, it might be difficult for you to have them leave your team, but if their skill set can be put to better use somewhere else, that could indirectly affect you. For example, me giving IT support to the sales associates, help them do their job better. You know, very, that was a worthwhile trade for her and for the company. So I encourage you as a manager or supervisor, leadership, and to any degree, uh, to see that or at least look for it in your subordinates and see how you can help them out. Help them grow, I guess would be a better way to put it. Another really good example of this manager that I really liked in the beginning, but then not so much at the end. Um, he was willing to go to bat for me, and other people in the company would complain that like I was, like, oh, why did can't do this? Why is he whatever? And this supervisor would go to bat for me. And I super appreciate that because there were times, like behind my back conversations that would happen where he stuck up for me where it like mattered. Um, and not that it was, like CYA kind of stuff, or, like, I don't know. Not that I was like being bad and, he had to cover for me kind of thing. It was sticking up for me. Um, yeah, he's really I would say he's the only supervisor I've had that did that, and I very much appreciate that. Um, because if you don't have it also says something about you as a supervisor. Like if you don't have faith and confidence in your employees, that's kind of a you problem. That's something that you are not doing. Um, so I know I talked a lot about the negative, and I haven't really gotten into the positives a whole lot as much as I should. Uh, but I'll just kind of keep it neutral. The communicating, being in touch with your employees, subordinates. Whether you're the owner of the company or your uh, bottom level employee plus one, um, like team lead, even having open, honest communication, knowing what's going on, knowing what it takes to get the job done. So, like, what struggles the team is facing, that's super important. I learned that during my time as manager at this restaurant. Eh, it's a hut very commonly associated with pizzas. You know what I mean? So, um, having that open line of communication with your employees, what struggles they're facing, so like what they need help with, what it is that you can do differently to help them, and then also communicating to them things that they can do differently to help you, so that there can be good synergy or the camaraderie and team cohesion that's not only for uh, the little guys, I guess, but also for the management. They when I was at the restaurant, a common and I think my teammates appreciated me for this, is that I would acknowledge, like, hey, I am very knowledgeable about what I do here, and I can do quite a bit by myself. However, I would not be a complete team if I didn't have you guys. And there's a lot of stuff that I just wouldn't be able to do on the shift if it wasn't for you guys helping. And so just showing my appreciation for their work to whatever degree they decided to give it. um, yeah, so I guess positives here. I think, yeah, so my experience in training people. So not only did I train people as a manager, but also in my previous position, I trained some of my teammates on how to do, or at least did my best to show them how to do certain parts of their job or to teach them something new. So it wasn't just me doing it, so that other people knew how to do stuff. So whether that was writing documentation or having a meeting and going over this thing, recording videos, and letting people know how to do a particular thing. So with that, I found that there's a really big difference in how, not only how, but the speed in which boys and girls learn things. Um, and also how that evolves over time. So I found that the younger males, so we're talking like 16-ish, versus the younger females, same age, that the females, you can show them how to do it, tell them how to do it just once, and they got it. They know, or they're at least willing to figure it out, and they got that drive. They they got it. I really enjoyed having to train, and I know that might sound kind of weird. I'm not a creep, I promise. um, it I enjoyed having these young. Gosh, that sounds really weird. How am I going to say this? It was an easier experience training a younger female than it was training a younger male. There we go. We got there. So, um, the guys, it seemed like I gotta show them 3, 4, 5, 6 times how to do it, and I gotta like keep on them like regularly about it, how to do their job right. And be like, hey, those coaching opportunities, they're We're having a lot of them. And not try and like belittle them, being like, "Yo, you're kind of dumb." I mean, there were a couple where it's like, really, like I just showed you how to fold a box, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, and then so then as they get older, so my like I mentioned it my last. I think I mentioned it. Yeah, I mentioned it. My last job, one of my last jobs, was teaching my teammates how to do things that I do, and so I wasn't the only one doing them. And they, I found that the female teammates were they seemed more willing to learn, but they didn't ask questions, and they made a lot of assumptions. Whereas the guys, it was a very like, okay, I need to ask you 1,000 questions. Tell me more, and I'm gonna come back to you, and I want to make sure I'm doing this right. But hey, maybe I'm sexist. I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comments. So, but overall, like, I enjoy having women in the workplace. No issue. I do think it's interesting how women seem to like hate each other in the workplace. Um, Very strange. Especially when it's all management. Ooh, when you have an all-female management, nothing against female managers, but I've noticed a trend where it seems like there's conflict. A lot of not necessarily direct, but more so like behind the back, kind of, talking smack about so and so. Gosh, wonder what you say about me. Which leads into another thing about being a great peachy manager is to not be judgmental toward, especially openly judgmental towards your subordinates. Uh, I've had managers that are very openly judgmental of me, and I feel like that is just a very toxic work environment. But then on the other hand, I have had two managers, supervisors, that actually, we shared ideas that were opposite, and we had very healthy conversations. More so in the casual kind of way, talking about politics, religion, which generally I recommend not talking about those things at work, uh, because right. But they so for example, I identify, I am more Christian. I would consider myself Christian. Um, but the supervisor, he was definitely on the not that, the exact opposite. He was a non-believer. I'll just put it that way. Which it's fine. Everybody can believe whatever they want to believe. Doesn't matter. And also politically, we were, I would consider myself more centrist, and he was definitely more so liberal, which, that's fine. But we were able to have very healthy discussions, and he didn't think, at least I don't think, he thought differently of me as a person because of those. He saw me as a valuable employee, and that's what mattered. S so, and I felt like me and him actually, I say like work friends almost. But I feel like it did good for our professional relationship to be able to have those comfortable conversations. So if you are a supervisor, or even if you're not a supervisor or manager, if you're an underling, I would encourage you to be able to have casual conversations with your supervisor or your employees. And I know that can be difficult. Just it depends on the work environment, and also um, the the employee, I guess. You get your weird ones, and then it depends what what the existing relationship is like. I think they're being able to know how to repair a relationship, not only with your your fellow employees, but also your peer managers. That's incredibly important. For example, when I was working at the restaurant, there was this one manager. He was technically above me, but really we were equals. He did not have the authority to order me around. Um, so he just had a different set of responsibilities that I had that were more on the business side, and mine was more so on daily operations. So, um, but he was seen as like very always serious, kind of a, you know, doesn't take crap and or doesn't really mess around a whole lot. It's hard to get him to laugh, kind of stuff. And I ended up working a lot of shifts where it was just me and him during the day, and that and what I ended up doing was just talking to him, just trying to spark up conversation. It totally annoyed him at first. But after a while, he was just like, "Oh, this is who this guy is. He talks. He just wants to engage in conversation. Definitely don't be like the talker where you're just blah 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 about everything. Engage in socially acceptable conversation, I guess. Like, it, see, and this is one of those things that feeds into like my almost social anxiety. Having a conversation with someone, uh, when they're asking, like, you'll be doing whatever, and then they'll just ask you like a super personal question. It's like, how did we arrive at this? you know, or they'll just ask you, like you're busy doing your job, doing whatever, you're focused, and then they just come over and they're like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" It's like, good. Can we talk later?" Kind of thing. So, but yeah, so being, I guess I'm just gonna wrap this up with, I think that being a good manager, that's good with like a people manager, is knowing how to interact with people, which is difficult even for the introvert that I am. Very difficult sometimes. But understanding that other people have needs and wants, and that is your responsibility as a supervisor or manager to figure out how to help them be the best employee that they can and not rely on them to, outside of their working capacity, like their normal duties, to expect them to be able to make you a better manager. Because the better supervisor or manager that you are to your employees, the better uh, your employees will be to you. So I encourage you to, if you're in management and you feel like you're the greatest manager, or whether you think you're a terrible manager, to, just develop a relationship and open communication with your employees. Because just saying, "Oh, my door is always open," and then it also not being open, like that's a problem. But like, say that you have that open door policy, but then also act on that open door policy. Sometimes you need to be, as the manager, you need to be the one to engage them. Manager, supervisor, kind of the same thing, depends on company. Um, yeah, I would definitely like to talk more about management experience, work experience. I have a lot of funny stories. I have a lot of, there's the painful sides, there's the funny sides of things. And yeah, let me know what you think of this video. Totally don't mind going into more. Um, yeah. Link to my Patreon is in the description. I'd really appreciate it if you were to become a hero. Your name would be at the end of each video. If you could hit that like button, and if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Thank you, and I will talk to you later.